if you were to tell me that the best teachers get paid the most, I would 100% agree with that. Problem is the tool that they're going to try to use is the ISAT or the Common Core test or whatever standardized testing, and that really just tests which kids are good at taking tests and which kids are good at regurgitating information, not which kids are creative thinkers, which ones are going to be, really good citizens in our culture. And so that's a big issue. The second issue I have is more money doesn't motivate teachers to do their job better, and in most cases does not motivate people in general to work harder. And I've done a lot of research in that area, and Daniel Pink, who's you may have heard of, and he wrote a book called Drive, and he looked at a lot of research that when you pay people more money, that you don't actually get better work out of them. What you will see is people will cheat. People will do anything they can to get ahead, and there's been examples of that in schools already. And I think I referenced Atlanta, D.C. We have cheating going on in schools because, and I don't totally blame them. I'm not excusing it, but when you put up that kind of pressure on people, they're going to resort to doing whatever they can to succeed and make sure their schools don't get closed down and they're protected. I think you can standardize behaviors. In terms of my approach to teaching might be different than the guy next door, but we're both effective in reaching our kids and allowing them to learn. So I don't know that that's something you can standardize, because what we do I don't think of as a science. I don't think teaching is a science. I think it's an art. And so, if you're Van Gogh or Picasso, how do you measure them by the same ruler? And I don't know that that's a very possible thing to do. My goal as a teacher, my job is to get kids to learn. I mean, at the end of the day, that's my job. And if it takes some kids a day, it takes some kids a week. Am I to stop that learning? And I kind of have a couple of examples. If I give a kid a test back and they have flunked that test, one or two things is going to happen. Well, there's probably one thing that's going to happen. They're going to throw it in the recycle bin or the garbage can on the way out the door, and the learning has stopped. If I force that kid to do a retake, if I ask them to do some additional work to provide evidence they're continuing that learning, then the learning continues. Now, there are definitely different philosophies on, well, do I take points off in the grades and that and all that kind of stuff? But then I'm not grading them on their learning, I'm grading them on a behavior. And in my perfect world, and I don't have it in my school that I work at right now, but I would love to be able to give kids a grade strictly on their standards, their learning, and a grade on their behavior. Because in my opinion, turning in work on time or whatever, that's a behavior. That's not a measurement of their learning. And so, yeah, I do allow kids to retake, but I make them go through the ringer before they're allowed to retake and redo things, because I want them to learn. And that's my goal and that's my job. So that's my philosophy on it. And I know that's not the case in some cases, but I also know some teachers just let kids redo things 1,000 times, and that's not teaching them anything. If a kid flunks a test in my room, guess what? They're going to come to a study session with me. They're going to have to take some additional notes or do an additional activity to prove to me that they're making some progress. And you'll be surprised after about the first time a kid does that, they don't want to do that again, and they get it right the first time. I had some absolutely outstanding teachers. One of my favorites was Mr. Toole, Steve Toole, who was my history teacher throughout high school. Who I just enjoyed learning from him because he kind of told history like a story, and I teach kind of in a similar way. And Miss Kaufman, Denise Kaufman, who was my band director, and I also worked detasseling corn with her in the summers, which was always fun because you have a totally different relationship with a teacher when you're detasseling corn with them and then in their classrooms throughout the year. And then Miss Harvey, Tammy Harvey, who I know is now, I believe, the principal out there in one of the schools. She was my English teacher, and I always enjoyed writing in her class and reading, and she was, but I just had so many good teachers, and those teachers really did teach me the value of relationships, because that's product of being in a small, rural environment like that. You see your teachers at school, you see them in the supermarket, you see them everywhere you go. You can't get away from them whether you want to or not. And I think that's important because you create a personal relationship. And I know there's a lot of people that say, no, teachers should not have personal relationships with students or parents, but I don't know. I think there's a lot of value. We're humans. Why not? And so all of them really taught me that, and that's kind of something I still, I bring that with me today.